older I get, like, I think I've always been pretty independent, but after having bad relationships, even, I mean, I've talked about Carrie before. That was a pretty good relationship, and we were still very good friends.
Yeah.
But I don't think I was ever dependent on him at all. I think I've been, since the Joker, I think I've been very guarded and very kind of don't get too close, you know. I was telling my daughter the other day, about us doing this together. And I said, I hope that it's healing for Sarah. And my daughter says, I hope it's healing for you.
Exactly.
I'm like, because I think, I mean, it's been so long. It's been so long since I was romantically involved with him, but
you had the friendship.
What I
thought would be a friendship, a mature adult friendship that he took for granted. He totally abused that situation.
He really did. And honestly, I mean, I don't know if it was age or I think that hurts almost as much too, that I thought we were friends. And you said, the first time we recorded, you said, you really felt like nobody knew you the way he did. And I felt the same way, like he just knew me so well. And our friendship, and he's like the only person I'm still in contact that I was in contact with when I was in my early 20s.
Right.
And he's seen like all of my progression through life and the way things have changed and the kids and all of that. And then to kind of now be at that point where it's like, even the friendship was a lie.
Yeah.
He
used it to his advantage. He
100%.
used it to get what he needed, what he wanted. And
he really did, because he got out of child support. He got out of...
that's what I wanted to ask you. I remember, God, that was
20 years ago.
And I was helping my dad. He had just had a back surgery. And I remember you guys were going to court because there was a huge back child support that he owed you.
He owed thousands and thousands of dollars.
And then I came back home, and then all of a sudden it wasn't there. And I'm like, how do you get out of it?
Well, so we talked about this in one of the other things that we recorded, but what that was is that we went to the courthouse and agreed to erase the arrears if he would commit to paying moving forward, which, as you know,
so something to benefit him.
Exactly. When you just said the friendship benefited him, that was where my brain went first, because he used my friendship with him to get him out of owing all that back support, paid for a little while, which you have in that one of our other episodes mentioned that was actually you paying, which is really crappy of him. And then got out of it altogether because he worked on an Indian reservation and was not forced to pay because they're a sovereign nation and they don't garnish checks. So he had no risk. Yeah.
Which, if I remember correctly, and I could be remembering wrong, at some point they handed him a piece of paper saying you should sign this and then this can come out of your check. You don't have to. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't you? And it was like, oh, I'll just send it to her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And like now thinking, I'm like, okay. And like that like led into all of a sudden his checks weren't being deposited in the account. And I'm like,
oh,
well, why did you do that? And he goes, well, I want to have control of the money. And I'm like, goodness. So then he would cash them at the
Oh, right. On the reservation.
And he'd be like, okay, well, I'll give you what his plan was, I'll give you the mortgage, because he paid the mortgage and I paid everything else. I'll give you the mortgage. And like at first it was always he gave it. And then, well, the check was a couple $100 short. And I'm thinking, you're a fireman. You just worked 2 overtime shifts. How are we short? And it wasn't my job to question because, we don't lead into fights like that. But I noticed and I'm like, I wonder if he did some kind of manipulation with Brenda to get that child support from their arrears gone like that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole agreement was the arrears go away if you agree to start paying. And I think that paper that you're talking about was something that came from the courthouse. But because the sovereign thing, like they could not garnish his wages at any point, but since he was agreeable to making this deal, I think they thought, he'll sign off on this and it'll be fine. But just having a narcissist in control of money, or deciding where the money goes, they're always going to decide for themselves, right?
Well, that's what I learned.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, but because we also had a joint account, but then I had my account where the check are going for groceries, food, all the bills, all the groceries for the kids, for the cars, insurance, all that kind of stuff. And since they were at the same bank, I noticed that this account was getting put into the joint account. Some of it was getting, because the mortgage needed to get paid and there wasn't enough. And I'm going, what's going on? And I'm so in love. I don't check it. I don't, just trust. There. I just trust. And eventually then when he did the whole, I'm going to cash the check thing and no accountability.
Yeah.
I learned later. I let it go and I shouldn't have. And
how would you know? You were married and you trusted your husband.
Yes.
You didn't know.
Yeah. Stupidly, to the point of stupidly trusting him. I really feel I was stupidly trusting, because that was not only putting myself at jeopardy, it was putting my kids at jeopardy, it's putting our home in jeopardy. And it was dumb on my part.
Well,
to put that much. Well, it was a learned behavior. Like thinking back before the Joker, I would have questioned. I totally would have questioned. But after so many years of him having, I have control, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this, and he had all that control with it, that I didn't question. Oh, okay. Yeah. Didn't even, why would you need to cash your check at the casino instead of putting it into the bank? Yeah. To me now, I'm like,
well, sure.
Sense. Like what? I'm like, how did I think that was okay? Just,
well, you have to think about the manipulation and whatever language he was using with you also. Like, what was he telling you? Because he is very good at making, he talks a lot, but he can make anything make sense because he does that word salad. They call it word salad. And in narcissistic abuse terms, word salad means that they just throw so much at you that you can't make sense of it, and then you just kind of give up. Because and what's the point? And you're just going to end up in a fight, and you know that.
I think that what's the point? Yeah. I'm going to end up in a fight, and we don't need to do that.
No, so you just kind of let it go. Also, I think for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys were together for quite a while before you had a child.
Yes.
So there were these patterns that maybe went unnoticed, and probably very much, especially because he was getting all the attention from you at that time, he was probably on better behavior. Then kids come along, you're distracted, he's not getting the attention that he wants. And I feel like that's kind of a recipe, in hindsight, recipe for disaster with a narcissistic partner too, because then he's probably picking fights, and you're too distracted being crazy about this child that you have and being a mom. You're not paying attention to all of the details. Okay, well, he's cashing his check at the casino, that's fine, as long as the mortgage is paid. I mean, that's kind of, I think, probably where your mind goes. He's a good, do you feel like you talked a lot?
Felt like if I brought up, I learned not to bring up my feelings or how I thought about a situation, because if I thought, okay, I think that you were mean, how you said this to me, you were vindictive, condescending, and somehow the whole thing came around, and the words, and I don't have it in me to even say how, but it was a 2-hour conversation and somehow turned into everything was my fault. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay, well, I guess it was my fault that I had these feelings, that I felt this way and I shouldn't have felt this way. I'm like, okay. But because I'm communicating is not my thing. I'll tell you, I will tell you, I'm upset. I don't really want to go much further. I don't want to fight. I'm upset. Please, I don't want to argue, or I need to walk away and I'll settle down and I'll think, okay, I'm upset and this is why. But I learned in that situation with him that it is best not to say how I feel.
Yeah.
Not even say anything about how he made me feel or how he affected the children. It would just come an outburst, anger, and then somehow everything was my fault.
Yeah, it always, you've said that so many times. Everything was turned around and blamed on you.
Yes.
Right. And I think he's very good at that too, that switching the blame or switching the whole conversation so that it turns around and you're like, oh wait, maybe I did do something wrong, or maybe I am being the jerk or whatever. Yeah, he's very good at that. But when you said that about the 2-hour conversation, I mean, I think that's part of the manipulation too, is just kind of wearing you down and just not letting it go, and you try to walk away and
berating, like like you're like, okay,
yeah,
that whatever, and you're like, no, this is going to be your fault.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see that this is your fault. And if you don't, we're just going to keep at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I can just think of so many examples of just being like trapped in a room with him because he won't let me leave the room because same thing. He's going to make sure that I understand that I did something wrong here.
Like following you like into the bedroom, and then I would walk onto my side to get away. The door would get closed and he would literally follow around the bed to my side. And I'm just like,
I had a conversation with him once. He said Sarah got mad at me because I was following her around, and it was meant to be funny because I used to get mad at him all the time for following me around. It's like, quit, just leave me alone. But he I think thought he was being cute. And then when he told me that you got mad at him for doing that, I said, well, of course he's doing that to Sarah now, right? But it's not cute.
No,
it's threatening and
scary. It is so scary to think that. Okay, and like finally, I just learned after, not quick enough, obviously, but learned just to it's my fault, or you're right, you're absolutely right. My therapist. Still, when I was, we would talk about it, and I'd be apologizing, and she's like, "What are you doing? What are you talking about?" She's like, "You are still apologizing for him." Mm-hmm. And then dealing with the talking with the therapist that they're doing conjoint therapy, my daughter and him. I was apologizing for his actions, and she's like, "Listen, you need to stop that. He is a grown ass man. Yes. He is in control with how he speaks to me, how he communicates, how he controls his emotion. That is not for you to apologize." And I said, "I'm sorry." And she's like, "You did it again." And she's like, "It's like you're just geared or trained to just that word comes out of your mouth." And I went home and I sat down and cried. Aww. Because that's how I felt. I'm like, oh my, I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Like I was telling you about the situation at work. You're right. I'm sorry.
The automatic response to that person being rude. Yeah. Yeah. I can relate to that in a big way too. Just constantly apologizing to the point where you feel like you're just apologizing for your existence. Yes. Right? Like, I shouldn't have even been here. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't. And it's disgusting. I'm glad she called you out on that. Yeah.
And I didn't even I had no recognition of it. Really? None. And like my son will say like, "Mom, you're doing it."
Good.
You're doing it.
Boy, he's a good mirror for you, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That Mom. He's like, and like he'll say, and he'll be like, "Yes, we grew up in a bad situation," and he's like, "I can't say that I don't blame you to a certain part, Mom, but you were going through the same thing." Yeah. He's like, "You were abused and traumatized. We just happened to be going through it at the same time. And at that point, you did not feel that you could protect us, or you weren't strong enough." He's like, "If you, meaning me right now in time, went back, there'd be no question." Right. Yeah. Like a friend of mine at work was like, "Well, if you know now and you went back and you met, would you go through it again?" I said, "I would go through it just until I had my children." That would be the part, and then right there. And then I would be out the door, no questions. He would not know anything. I would be gone.
Oh, Sarah. I've had the exact same thing because there were times, I've mentioned this before, but there were times when I was pregnant with Ian, because I got pregnant so quickly after we got together, that he would leave and then he'd come back, and he'd leave and come back. And at that time I was so in love, and I always took him back every time, which I shouldn't have done. And those are the moments. Like there was one point where I hadn't talked to him for a while, and it was about to have my first, I think it was my first ultrasound for Ian. And I think I can't remember if he knew it or if he coincidentally called me right before the appointment was going to happen. And I told him, and he decided that he wanted to come. And then that eventually led to us getting back together permanently. And I look back at that day so many times and think that was it right there. That was the day that I could have gotten out. My son would not have been exposed to him at all. My daughter would have had very little exposure to him. And if I could go back and change one day in my life, it would be that day.
Yeah. I have a couple of those where like I would have left right then. This my kids would have had a happy childhood. They wouldn't have witnessed what they've had to witness. You know, they are gonna like in their relationships. What they saw is what they're going to do and even like my son and I talk quite regularly about it. I'm like, control is a major thing. You don't have control of another person.
So true. That's such an important thing for all of us to recognize.
Yeah, the way you think is not how somebody else thinks. You can't impose your opinion or your thoughts onto that person, no matter what. And you have to be willing to let that person's opinion and matters and how they think come into you.
Yes. That's a relationship.
Yes, you cannot block it. You cannot say, no, my way or the highway, because that's exactly how I felt. And it was way or the highway, or I was going to pay for it until I accepted it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like I definitely experienced that in my romantic relationship with him. And I think also in my friendship with him, because there were times, this just popped in my head too, as an example of what I was just thinking. There was a school shooting. It was an elementary school, at Sandy Hook Elementary School. There was a shooting there, and he and I are on very opposite sides politically, and he knew that, and he was always trying to challenge me to make me come over, and he kept saying, "You're really conservative. You just won't admit it." And I'm like, "No, I'm not." And I'm okay with who I am, and this is what I believe in, being kind to people, and that's really kind of the baseline for me. But that happened, and I remember him wanting to argue. I'm like, it was like he called me like when it was all on the news and everything. Are you watching the news? Do you see what happened? And I'm like, yes, devastating. All these little kids, and God, it's horrible.
It breaks my heart.
It's devastating. But to call me and try to have an argument, a political argument, while this is happening, and it's just such a traumatic thing to be watching on the news, but just to use that as a way to like, twist the knife and make himself right, and make me argue my point of where I stand politically. And it's like,
well, he was also trying to get you in an emotional state as well, because as moms, we're going to put ourselves in that situation where my kid's at that school. That's the first thing, no matter what, your kid's at that school, even if they're not at that school, that's where you go to. Oh my God, the children.
Yes. Yeah.
So right then and there, he has us on the emotional side right there. And I think he likes to trigger that.
Yeah. I bet you're right.
Because then he goes, "Oh, you're crazy. You're just so hormonal." And, and I'm like, it's not hormones. It's our protective nature. This is who I am. And these are my views. And my views can be different than yours, because we don't have the same views. We don't see things the same, but we're adults.
Right.
I don't have to see, you don't have to see the way I see. And guess what? We can still be friends.
Yes, it's fine.
Yes.
It's fine.
Him in particular, he cannot. He has to just pound it into you. You're wrong. The way you think is wrong. Yeah. And I did that. I went to that. Okay, my thinking's wrong.
Yeah, that was definitely my experience with the Joker. Always trying to convince me that I was wrong. And maybe feels incompetent, I suppose, on some. And I think I'm pretty smart. And I think you've said this before too. I mean, you're so smart, and here comes this guy. He's smart too, but not smarter than either one of us. I don't think he is.
I don't think I've gotten to your point of believing in myself as much or having that opinion yet. I'm getting there. I am getting there. Good. But yeah, I believe those years of him telling me, "Oh no, you're dead wrong," or "Your opinion doesn't matter," or like, "The sky's blue. No, it's purple and you're wrong."
Yeah.
And to the point where eventually I saw purple.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That, you are absolutely right. This sky is purple. So trying now to get out of that. I'm slowly getting out of that slowly and believing in myself again. It's hard.
It's really hard. And you were with them for so long that I mean, there's a lot of unwinding of all of that I think has to happen. But I feel like it happens way more quickly to unwind it than it took to all these years of creating it, right? Thankfully. Yeah.
And then my I have a coworker at work, and they have a certain way of thinking, and that's fine. And but it was, well, you could have left. And, oh my God, that gets me. And I'm like, if you haven't been in that situation, you don't understand. It's learned. It is drilled into you. It doesn't happen overnight. And well, the first time you were abused, you should have walked away. And you're absolutely right. I should have. But I'm conditioned to think in my mind, that's not who this person is. He made a mistake that he's going to learn from. He is going to get help about how he reacts and how he does stuff. And it was my fault. So it was my fault. So of course I'm going to take him back. He's my life.
Right. That victim blaming makes me so mad. And we were just talking earlier about using the word victim. And I don't think people realize, well, probably with any kind of abuse, but we're talking about narcissistic abuse here, that there are years, or at least a long time, of getting you to that point where you're like, oh yeah, I was wrong. Right. It didn't happen overnight. No. Also, eventually there's children involved. For me too. It just happened really quick for me, but there's children involved too. And you start to think about, what does this mean if I leave? It's not just me leaving. What does this mean for their future? This is our family. Will it get better? And always convincing ourselves that this isn't really, he's really that nice guy, or that loving guy.
The situation is a happy family. We're not this dysfunctional family that happens once in a while that is now happening more and more often. No, we are this family. We love each other. We spend time together. Yes. We're that family. We're not the family that we are behind closed doors, where people don't see and don't know.
Yeah, that what's really going on. But for somebody to tell you that, why didn't you just leave? I feel like this, it's shaming the victim. It's blaming the victim, right? Well, you asked for it if you stayed. I mean, I feel like that's the next logical thought if you're saying, why didn't you just leave? And it's just so not that simple. And I think this is another one of those things that I hear all of my clients say too. Like, they're afraid to talk about what's going on because people won't understand. And it's true. And you've said that.
I felt like it would be wrong on my part. Like, I would be committing a sin. I was married in the eyes of the Lord, I said forever, till death do us part.
Yeah.
And I truly believed I would be with this person forever.
Did you part?
Yes. Yeah. And to be here and thinking, oh my gosh, I am going to break that. Still makes me cry. Because you don't take marriage or having children with somebody as, oh, sure, why not? Let's just do it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's something that you think about, or, and then every day is, your concern is about your child and how they're growing and how they see the world, how they see you. Are we good enough for them?
Oh, yes.
So that's like my concern is, I have to get out of, I fucked up my kids. I have to get out of, they have been through stuff that, yes, they should not have seen. Absolutely. And every day I always tell them, you come talk to me. I don't know if I have any answers for you, but I'm here for you. I will try to help. They talk to counselors. They have counselors, they have therapists, and I'm hoping that we break the cycle.
Oh, for sure.
The cycle needs to be broken and get out there. Like, my kids encourage me, like, when are you and Brenda going to get together to do the podcast? She's like, and like, my daughter's like, is this something that like my friends can watch? And I said, absolutely. When it gets done, absolutely. Yeah. I think that everybody should watch, because it can be role reversed. It doesn't just have to be the female being
for sure
the victim or the survivor. It can be the other way around. So I think everybody should see it. And my story is not the same as every story. Your story is not the same as my story. We just happen to share the same Joker.
Our stories are rather similar, but you're right. It's different because I didn't have years with him before we had a child. We were, I did kind of jump into it, but I about to not have my child, whether he was in the picture or not, you know, and that's not no statement on anything other than that was the right choice for me at the time, I felt, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I mean, that's my
Absolutely.
son. But yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do?
Because it was the same person that asked, like, well, would you go back to him what you know now? And I'm like, absolutely, until I had kids. And they were just like, I don't understand you. And I'm like,
do they have children?
No.
Okay, that might.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, my children are my world.
Yeah. I mean, there's no greater gift in life, in my opinion.
No, I don't think
your
so.
Kids.
No.
Yeah.
So. And believe me, I'm not perfect, and there's no manual, as we both know. And as my son will say, that's not in the parenting manual. I'm like, okay, you know, I got the Cliff Note version, so